Well, that's cool. You right, Edgar?
Do you know the tongue out smiley face emoji?
Like semicolon or colon P, that one.
Colon P, exactly.
Right.
What does that mean?
I use it to indicate that I'm telling a joke.
Okay, so if you had a sentence like, I am sorry, colon P, how would you interpret that?
That they made some kind of small mistake and they're kind of sorry about it, but it wasn't like it was a really big serious thing. It was just like, haha, whoops, I guess would be how I would interpret it.
Okay, because there seems to be two factions of people. Like, I'm on the side that it always indicates joke, and then there's another faction of people who are like, it indicates like lightheartedness, like it like negates any seriousness that should be in that might be in the statement, and that has recently led to some confusion where I was sent that line, "I am sorry, colon P," and I was all like, "Oh, you're joking," and it's like, no, I actually am, but it's not that serious. It's like, but then why did you put that? And it was a big thing, and I'm just trying to ask everyone around me, what the hell the emoji means. It is one of the most ambiguous emojis, and it's used like very differently by many people, and it's weird.
I would fall into the lighthearted camp in that dichotomy, I think. But as the interesting thing about emoji and emoticons is emoji are like the specific Unicode standard, and like emoticons are them in general. So like colon P is an emoticon, but it's not an emoji.
Right? Now, but why is that interesting?
Well, just the use of language here, that they're kind of used interchangeably, but emoji is like, I mean, obviously you can use it however you damn well please, but it does have kind of a specific meaning of this, like the set of Unicode blocks that are used for characters, for like emoji characters.
Wait, hang on. Wait, so do you know people who will call an emoticon an emoji?
Yes.
Oh, well, no, that's very weird.
Well, you kind of did in your reference there to using the colon P emoji.
Yeah, okay, but that's...
that kind of thing.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, but it's easier to say colon P than it is to say smiley face with the tongue out.
Yeah, and I understand the context in which it was used. Yeah, but people do use that, yeah. And the other thing about it is that emoji are different on different devices. So
yeah,
they'll be totally different if you've got an Android phone or an Apple phone.
What do you think about emojis in general? Are you pro emojis?
I'm a fan.
Are you a fan?
I'm pro emoji.
You're pro emoji. What are the like? Okay, say I'm an alien that landed down on planet Earth. Don't know anything about emoji. Sell it to me. Give me the big hitting arguments as to why emoji is good.
I don't know. I just like how they look. They're fun.
That's fair. I think there's a real linguistic need for them. Like, obviously, you could use both emoticons and emojis to do the thing, to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. But like, there's so much information that could be expressed in an emoji that will take many, many words to do. I think they're really, really good. I think some of the implementations of them are not great. Like, they just design-wise, they look horrible. A lot of them. And that really
of course depends
me.
on what platform you're using, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Like Microsoft ones are not good.
But I do like them, but I have a slight preference for using the plain text ones as punctuation or like within conversation, within text conversations. I would be more inclined to write colon P than I would to put in the emoji or the like crying with laughter emoji or whatever.
All right, so then why?
I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not sure why I have that preference.
Yeah, but hold on. In texting, does the colon P not autocorrect to the emoji?
It depends.
Oh.
Not on WhatsApp, for example.
Okay.
Or not in like Snapchat text. On Facebook Messenger and things it does, but not on every platform.
What's your views on the use of emoji, like a long string of emoji, after a statement that does nothing to enhance the meaning of the statement, but just reiterates what's in the statement? So, like, if I was like, going for beers after the podcast with Bill, and then the emojis are like I don't know, a leaving a house emoji, 2 beers, a man, a microphone, that sort of thing.
I would find that annoying. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you not see this practice amongst people? I've so many people do this in my life. I'm like,
yeah, no, yeah, I know, I do, and I find it annoying a little.
Okay.
But like going for a beer after the podcast, and then like the 2 beers emoji, that's like I don't like excessive emoji use as a personal aesthetic preference.
Yeah, 1 or 2. Now, I've been guilty of excessive emojis in the past, but I'm limiting it now. Like I'm pulling back my behavior. Anyhow, emojis. Okay, let's.
I hope this is all going in, man.
I don't know. Hello Internet covered this in depth. It's a reiteration of what other people have said, but maybe. Anyhow, what's called? Shall we start the show proper?
Let's.
Okay, so first thing I need to correct an error I made in the last show.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, if I remember correctly, I said something like YouTube, the YouTube creator split regards to ad revenue was 55-45 in favor of YouTube. And it's not. Right. It's reverse. It's only a very minor point, but I just want to get it out there. We do get like over 50% of the ad revenue. YouTube isn't screwing us completely. So just for the sake of rightness, I needed to put that in. Yeah.
I saw something the other day. Oh, it was yesterday, in fact. Let's see if I can find it here now. A video from Casey Neistat. Is that the right name?
Yeah, Casey Neistat.
I understand is a very popular YouTuber.
He is. I admire his work in general. There are some times where I'm like, oh, now did that video really need to be made? That wasn't a good call, Casey. But in general, he makes good stuff.
He put up a video in 2 days, like over 2 days. It got over 1 million views and nearly 6 million minutes of watch time, and earned less than a cent from it. Apparently.
What?
It's a thing he tweeted. It's a picture he tweeted.
Wait, how? What? But that
maybe it was. Well, it says here usually earnings are a day or so behind, so this is nothing of concern. Never mind, scratch that.
Yeah. Wow, Bill, that was a great story there, Bill.
How about you go yourself?
That's staying in the podcast.
Good.
Well, it has to stay in the podcast now because we have no segue out of my little correction there. Like you had a nice little like, oh, that's interesting. Here's a follow-on story. Move on. But now the follow-on story just stopped dead in this track, so we're just going to have to use this as the segue.
Fine with me.
Speaking of YouTube videos, Asmodean _ made a Asmodean _ of Artifexian highlights fame. Made a video, a channel trailer for our channel, for the podcast channel. So just I want to say thanks on air to Asmodean _ and everyone should go check it out and go check out his stuff. Links in the show notes. They're really good. I really enjoy his videos. They're great.
Oh, cheers, Asmodean.
Did I not send that to you?
I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry. I made a decision for the brand without informing you first. I'm sorry. I thought I sent that to you.
Possibly. I don't think so, though. Don't worry about it.
It's nothing harmless. It's basically just highlights of the highlights.
Okay.
So, to replace the trailer we had there, because every so often you should update the trailer. So, thanks to Asmodean for that. That was really cool. Some more thanks, because this is what we do at the start of the show, Bill. We thank lots of people. Thanks to Patreon. Okay, you're gonna have to stop me from talking about for 2 hours about this. But TLDR for the future space listener. I launched a Patreon like a few weeks ago, and oh my god, did it go really, really well! Like the Patreon for the actual Artifexian channel. And
yeah, for the Prime YouTube channel, yeah.
The Artifexian Prime, exactly. It went so well. And I ran, because I'm a data nerd, I ran loads of numbers and compared it to like other creators I admire of similar sort of like viewing numbers and subscribers, and it's like crushing it compared to a load of people. Yeah. So like Artifexia is class and it's awesome. And I think, I really do think now this could actually be the makings of a job. Like we're not quite at minimum wage, because I was looking for minimum wage in the video, but as a starting point, it's amazing. And I think it actually could happen. So I am so grateful and so thankful to all of Artifexia. So I just need to put that on the show.
Can I just have a quick look at the figures there on the Patreon?
You can, of course.
Sweet.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like considering things like, now obviously I just want to preface, right? Like the amount one gets on Patreon is not directly proportional to how good one is. So, you know, if I say like, oh, I'm doing really well relative to other people, that's not saying that they are in any way terrible. Do you know, it's just different audiences and things like that.
Yeah.
But like Zitnaf's videos, for example, he was getting about a third of that figure. And like, that just makes me feel really cool. It's kind of like, oh, I can compete in this world. This is class. So it was good. It was really good.
Nice one.
So that was a thank you. And then now I need an apology, right? I got hit a little bit of bother with the world building subreddit. If you happen to be the people that I caused hassle to, if you were listening, I am really, really sorry. Did you notice this build? Did this come across your radar?
I think so. Yeah. What was it?
So I put the Patreon video on the world building subreddit, as more like genuinely as a kind of sort of like, remember I started this like a couple of years ago. Look, I'm making this my full-time job. This is class. Here's the video where I explain the things. Like I wasn't like fishing for patronage. Like I didn't say come patronize me and things like that. And then the mods initially blocked it, and I was like, that is entirely fine. If that's your call, I'll remove it. And then they were like, no, it's okay. You make good stuff, and you've been here for ages, and you've a track record, so it's cool. And then a number of people were kind of like, that's not cool. That's blatant favoritism. And then the mods like got in there. I think it was one mod got in there and like stuck up for it a little bit, and then there was a little bit of like conflict resolution have to happen. So I need to apologize to the mods for causing hassle on their part, and also to people who feel like I have taken advantage of the subreddit in that instance, that it genuinely was not my intent, and the intent literally was to be like, oh my god, I get to make world building a job, this is class, thank you. But that some people didn't take it that way, so that's the apology. Cool. Makes sense?
It does make sense.
But so anyhow, that is the thank yous and the follow-ups. Next thing I want to talk about, Bill, if it's okay with you, is follow up on the best things of 2017.
Okay.
So you asked this in the last show, and I wasn't prepared, and I was kind of like, I don't know, like what is the things? I have two things that I should have brought up, or rather, one thing I should have brought up, and one thing I'm going to add to the list. The thing I'm going to add to the list is the Blind Boy podcast, which you mentioned last show.
Yeah.
I began listening to that, and holy God, is it an amazing podcast. Like,
isn't it brilliant? It
is just the best. Like, I'm genuinely thankful that you brought it up, and I was like, oh, I should go check it out. It is so good. And I usually don't like the one person speaking into the microphone podcast. There are exceptions to that. But in general, I'm like, it doesn't feel right. But he pulled it off so well with like his like Tom Waits-esque sort of like piano music playing quietly in the background. His like really soft, deep voice discussing all of this like philosophy, and it's just it's just so good. So I would encourage everyone to check it out. Bill is dead right in that there is a cultural barrier there. But I think people in the UK certainly would be able to get all the little bits of like in culture, so to speak.
I don't know which episodes you've listened to, but he talks about his stats every so often, and he's got a load in the States, and and a fair few in the rest of the Anglophone world. I'm sure a lot of those are Irish immigrants.
Yeah.
Emigrants. Whichever the correct one is. Migrants. But still, I mean, there's obviously not all of them.
Yeah, that's fair. Exactly. Yeah, I would encourage people to go check it out. And like he deals with like kind of topics we deal with here, like writing. Ostensibly, the podcast is about he wrote a short story book and he wants to kind of sell it. And then it's degenerated into his sort of like stream of consciousness. So if there's anyone here who's a writer and likes writing and is interested in hearing other people talk about like the creative process and how they deal with these things, amongst other things, like I think it could be genuinely useful. So I think it's applicable here, and I'm going to put it in the show notes, and I think you should check it out.
He's got a great episode where he talks about Caravaggio a load as well, because he's really into art. He knows a lot about art. That's a very good episode, actually.
I did not listen to that because I started listening. I rarely ever kind of go back through podcast back catalogs unless unless every episode is dependent on the previous one. Like there's a continuous narrative. So I just started reading. I just started listening at the point I jumped in, which was what was that episode? I can't remember which one that was, but it's great. It's so good. And yeah, so thank you, Bill. Best thing of 2017. That is one, and I really have to thank you for showing me it.
Not at all. I've been listening to a bit of podcasts recently. Actually, I've gotten way more into it in the last while. As I've mentioned over the past few episodes,
which I've always found really weird because you make podcasts, but you're not actually that big a podcast listener.
Yeah, I mean, look, up until probably quite late last year, I'm sure I've mentioned Garth Marenghi's Dark Place before.
No, I don't.
Okay, well, it's this TV show. I won't go into the specifics of it now, but it's kind of about a terrible horror writer, and at one point he says of himself, "I'm actually notable. I'm one of the few people who's written more books than he's read."
All right.
And that was me with regards to podcasts up until probably sometime over the summer. I'd actually made a lot more podcasts than I'd ever listened to. Sadly, that's no longer the case. It was a good thing that's no longer the case, but it was a funny claim to be able to make. I've listened to Welcome to Night Vale a lot recently.
That's really interesting, right? That's considered one of the big podcasts. I found it impermeable. I just could not get into it.
Interesting. Was it because it was the one person?
Yeah, well, it was because of the format. One person thing, but also I listened to it like the usual thing. I just jump in wherever it's at, have a listen to that, and gauge to see whether or not I like it. And then it became so abundantly clear that there was no way you'd be able to understand this without going back and listening to the whole narrative. Okay. And then I was just like, probably the one person thing just made it so that I was like, I'm not bothered. So I really quickly gave up on Welcome to Night Vale. Again, it's not bad or anything, and I think the premise is really cool. Oh, TLDR, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a fictional radio broadcast from
it's community radio from a town where weird fiction happens.
Yeah, a fictional town where weird fiction happens. And the premise is great, and I like the sort of like almost, I don't know, World-esque sort of radio drama thing. Like, that is a really cool idea. It's just not for me. But you enjoy it, yeah?
I do. I'm a little over a year into it now because I did go back to the start. I initially, someone played me the first episode about 2 or 3 years ago, and I enjoyed it. But I just, I didn't listen to podcasts and I couldn't get my head into that space. But it's on Spotify now, and I was like, gosh, I'll give it another try. And I've listened to maybe 30 episodes or so now.
Hang on, do you listen to your podcast on Spotify?
I listened to that one on Spotify.
Okay. Would you not just listen to it in the podcast player?
Sometimes.
Oh,
but I mean, I found that one on Spotify, and that's where like the log of which ones I've listened to are, and so it's always in my recently listened to, and it automatically plays them in order. Whereas the podcast player I have to like automatically update it, and it's a whole thing. Means of access is a big thing for me.
See, this is one of the weird things about podcasting, right? Like the whole decentralized nature of podcasting is one of its big plus points, but at the same time, everyone has their own special, unique way of listening to podcasts. And it's really weird, especially in YouTube land, where it's like, if you want to watch a video, you go through YouTube to watch said video. And because it's so centralized, like, creators can have lots of metrics and lots of data, and they can do a whole lot of web-based things around it. Whereas the podcast thing, it's kind of like, it's just, what do you call that shruggy emoji? The shruggy emoticon. It's just like, meh, whatever. Like, it's such a weird feeling. Like, there's people watching on the web, through Spotify, in players. They download each file and store the files locally. Then there's people who don't do that. And it's just a crazy Wild West world out there. And I hope it remains like that. I'm not complaining, because if it doesn't remain like that, we're going to get a YouTube for podcasts. And I don't think that's what people want. But that's just a little comment there. Welcome to the world of podcasting, Bill.
So what's the other good stuff of 2017?
The other big thing of 2017 is Hamilton. Have you heard of this?
Okay.
Have
I heard of it?
Or have you heard of it? Or if you have you listened to it? I
have heard so much about it. And I have listened to some of it.
Okay. I think... the backstory here, to weave a bit of a narrative for you guys, is that I was dimly aware of Hamilton as a thing. In the briefest of TLDRs, I was kind of like, oh, it's a retelling of some part of American history with a diverse cast. And I was like, oh, that sounds really fun. That's great. And I never really looked into it. And then Pence, the thing happened with Mike Pence.
Yeah.
Where he showed up and they had him a speech, and then Trump got all angry and all the craziness. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. It was in the news cycle, so I looked into it a little bit more. Became a little bit more aware of it, but not to the point where I started listening to it the whole way through. And then I went over to Zidnaf's place to see the eclipse, and on the 6-hour drive over to Wyoming, we played it in the car. So I was kind of like a captive prisoner, so to speak, in the best possible way. And I was kind of forced to listen to this, again, in the best possible way. Like, I didn't say no, and they just did it anyways. And ever since that point, I have just listened to it on loop, repeatedly, all the time. Like, I listened to the entire thing today once through. It's just the most, I cannot overstate how amazing I think it is. I think it's a work of art. I think it's a work of musical theatre genius. I think it's a work of music theory genius as well. I think what they do musically in there is crazy. I think it's a work of hip-hop genius, the way it pulls in loads of hip-hop teams. It's the most fantastic thing ever. And even when I take in all the things that I don't like about it, there's a whole, if you want, I can go through the negatives in a bit. They don't outweigh it at all. There's some pretty huge negatives, but every time I hear it, I'm just kind of I'm brought into the happy place, and it's just so good. So if you haven't listened to Hamilton, dear listener, you really have to just park 2.5 hours one weekend and just listen to it straight through. It's just phenomenal. What do you think, Bill?
What do I think about Hamilton?
What do you think about Hamilton? Yes.
I don't like it.
No, really?
I don't really like musical theatre all that much.
But see, I'm
not a big fan of musical theatre in general.
Oh no, really?
Now, I respect musical theatre as a thing, and there's some I like. Like, for example, I love Bernstein. I absolutely love West Side Story. I think it's fantastic music, and it's a piece of theatre. I mean, I don't really know anything about theatre, but I enjoy this. And I really, obviously, that I love hip hop, and I have a lot of strong feelings about that. From what I've heard of Hamilton, I gave it a try, and I didn't like it because I think it does a disservice to musical theatre and hip hop.
Oh, you're going to have to explain that, because I don't think that's. But I don't think that's. I won't. But I don't think that's the case at all. How is it doing a disservice to hip hop? The rapping in it is really good, and the references to other great artists or works in hip hop in it are really intelligent throughout it. It's not like when Linkin Park bastardize rap. It's not doing a disservice like that. Those people genuinely rap. Miranda, the guy who wrote it, genuinely raps.
Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda seems like a great guy, and he's super talented. I don't know. It didn't speak to me much. I just don't think that the mediums go well together. It doesn't work for me. Now, I will say that I've listened to the Hamilton mixtape, and I think that's really good, which is a lot of the songs reworked and done by other people who are like full-time rappers and things as their main thing, not people who are in musical theatre. And that worked for me a little bit better as a mixtape rather than as a kind of a cast recording of a musical.
I have not listened to the mixtape the whole way through. I've listened to it in bits. I can see that. I'm genuinely disappointed, Bill. I really am. Like, cause
honestly, I just don't particularly care for musical theatre. So,
but the thing is,
it was always going to have to fight to win me over. Maybe I'll give it another chance and love it, but just right now, from what I've heard, I don't like it all that much.
That's really interesting. If you ever do give it another chance, talk about it. I want to hear it. I'd love to hear about it. If I may, really quickly talk about some negative points.
Sure.
You haven't listened to the whole way through, but you understand the broad strokes of it. Like,
it's the life of Alexander Hamilton.
Alexander, yes, yes.
Is that the right name, Alexander?
That would be the title of the first song. Yes. I joke.
If that was the correct first. I'm going to come up to Dublin and I'm going to smack you. And like he was around at the time of the American Revolution and in the politics afterwards. And Aaron Burr is kind of the villain, or at least a sort of a rival, etc.
I would argue that I think Aaron Burr is actually the main character, but that's just my own little thing. I actually think Hamilton is a bit kind of like he doesn't go through enough kind of like change over the course of the show to warrant him kind of being the main character. Yeah, everyone sings about him. That's great and all, but I actually think the most interesting character is Burr, and he's there the whole way through, and he narrates the thing as well. So depending on your point of view, Burr could be the character. But I am getting off track. Yes, okay, that is essentially the story of Alexander Hamilton and the founding of America and how all the things came to be. My big problems is that it's really great that a diverse cast took this on. But my problem is that it's not real diversity. And I know that's a true Scotsman fallacy, but just hear it me. It is a load of people of color singing what is ostensibly a white man song. Like they were all just white men. So we don't actually hear any stories of people of color from that time. And as far as I'm aware, I think there are some really compelling stories about people of color who like fought in the revolution, and it would be nice to hear those stories as opposed to hearing like more narratives of rich white men and how they all changed the world. So that is problematic. I think if you're going to tell that story, it's really cool to tell it from a coloured perspective, sure. But I would have liked to hear a story. I would have truly liked to hear a story that was just of people of colour. That would be one. And second of all, it's kind of a follow-on point, is it really furthers the narrative of great white men. It's like, the revolution was won because Hamilton did whatever and George Washington did whatever, when like really history, this is hardly a liberal point of view here, but history is not really the deeds of any one person. It's just kind of like the mass of humanity just moves itself along and we're just players and things like that.
It's great man history.
Yeah, it's great man, and it really makes like Hamilton like the greatest of men. Do you know what I mean? Because as far as I'm aware, I think Americans were looking to scrap Hamilton from their money. He's on their money, and they're just kind of, let's get rid of him, no one cares. And apparently now they're not doing that because everyone cares, and that's kind of the thing that I don't like. It's kind of like, let's just deify these few great men, and that bothers me a little bit. But even with those 2 points, I'm still kind of like, I love it so much. Oh, God. And then the Biggie Smalls references and the references to Destiny's Child. It's just, oh my God. I'm sorry. It's the greatest thing ever, Bill. Anyhow, so TLDR, those are the 2 things I think best of 2017. You introducing me to the Blind Boy podcast and Hamilton, an American musical. Links in the show notes.
Cool.
All right. Do you want to talk about Star Trek next?
Sure.
Okay. What you got in Star Trek?
Have you watched the few episodes since it's come back?
I have. Has there been a new one out today?
Yes.
I have not watched that one.
That was why I asked to do the podcast later.
Oh, I thought it was. Sorry. Wait, hang on. I took that as in I did not get a chance to watch the last one, and I will not get a chance until Monday evening. So we have to record Monday evening. I was like, okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. Do you want to tell me what happens in this next episode?
Communication is at an all-time high in Artifexian towers.
I know, right? Do you want to tell me what happens in this episode if it's crucial to your story? I'm not pushed about spoilers. I don't care.
It's not especially crucial. No, it's not especially crucial. What do you think of the 2 episodes since it's come back that you've seen?
The standout one was the one where Burnham has to kill your man. Isn't that it? Isn't that what happened?
Tyler?
Yeah. What the hell happened again? Jesus, Bill, do you know what I thought? I watched this with the captain, right? And I was kind of like, yes, that's a really, really good episode. I'll talk to Bill about this. And now it has entirely left me. What happened in the episode? They were in the shadow, the mirror universe thing.
Yeah.
And Tyler, with his weird Klingon, being Takuvma thing, he turned into Takuvma, and then she had to make the call to kill him to keep cover. Wasn't that it?
No. Well, he didn't turn into Takuvma. He turned into the white guy.
Oh, sorry,
the white Klingon.
Yeah, sorry, I used the wrong name. What's the white Klingon called?
I can't remember actually.
I think it says a lot about a show. Just before I say that, I'm generally positive towards Vok.
Vok. VOQ.
Do I have to bleep out Vok?
No, you don't.
I don't. Okay, cool. That could go on. I'm generally positive towards this, but I still don't think it's a great Star Trek. And I think the fact that we're not remembering characters, especially central characters, and I'm failing to remember the plot lines of episodes that, when watching them, really appeal to me. I think it speaks volumes about the show, just as a bit of commentary. Anyhow, that being said, when I was watching it, I really liked it. I thought it was cool. I think the whole universe, though, it has a slight problem with a narrative thread. I still don't know what exactly they're really doing. We were doing the fighting Klingon bit, and now we've been in the other universe for a little bit of time, and then we're going to go back. And I can't TLDR this show very well, other than it's war with the Klingons. I think that's problematic. Yeah.
Right.
So what do you think?
I strongly dislike the mirror universe as a concept. Have
always strongly disliked it?
I don't remember it very clearly from the other Treks I've watched.
Okay, because it's a recurring thing,
I know that it's a recurring thing, but it's just silly.
Yeah, but Trek is a bit silly.
So silly. It's so overwhelmingly silly. How can history be the opposite way around the entire way through, but the same people exist? It's absurd. Yeah,
it is. It is absurd, but I think it's one of those things where you're just you roll with it a little bit.
Yeah. And I really didn't like how the Doctor got killed. Because I think it's the first time there's been openly gay characters in Star Trek, and that there's been a gay couple in Star Trek, and then they've done that, and that's been really good, and then they fall into this constant thing in media of where gay characters are killed off.
Yeah, I see.
And that just really annoyed me.
Yeah, I seen a lot of tweets actually around that where people were kind of like, "Oh, you're really diverse, Star Trek, with your killing off of all the diverse characters or writing them into oblivion and things like that." I'm with you on that. I was kind of like, why did you have to go kill him? Like,
Yeah, it's just kind of like, it's just cheap. It just felt really cheap.
and aside from the whole thing about like, wouldn't have been great to have the gay couple continue on and we could hear stories from them. It's just, it just felt like narratively a bit wrong. It's kind of like we didn't really establish them all that well as a couple.
Yeah.
Like we didn't see them go through emotions and we really connected with them. It's kind of like we were told that they were a couple, and I think they shared one kind of like cozy nighttime scene. And then it's like, kill the guy. And it's like, well, okay, if you're going to kill someone, though, you need to make us feel for that before you kill them off.
It felt cheap, but it didn't actually have that much power to it because he hadn't been greatly established as a character, I don't think.
And then also, the other, I keep forgetting his name, Stamets. Stamets is like comatose in the corner, right? So we can't get a reaction from Stamets, you know?
Yeah,
we don't get any sort of sense of powerful emotion from that. So I'm with you. I didn't particularly like that. I think the guy being, what's his name? Fuck. I'm gonna stick with Fuck. The guy like being Fuck and having like the Fuck being like grafted to his insides, as far as I'm concerned, it just seems weird. It just seems really strange.
Would you not notice that? Like, would you not notice that they explain it much more clearly in the next episode? But it didn't make it. I just still thought it was a bit silly.
It does answer why Yuan was having sex with him, and how perhaps that might anatomically work. Perhaps, maybe, if I really stretch my suspension of disbelief.
Humans and Klingons can have sex. They can interbreed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know this. I know this, but. We are told that in the Star Trek universe that people can interbreed, but we never see it like graphically. And when you see it graphically, you're kind of reminded, kind of like, how does that work? Like, you know, like being told that it's fine. It's like here is a person who is half Klingon, half human, or here's a person who's half Vulcan, half human. That's fine. But again, seeing it, I think, is a whole different thing. Seeing in this case, Bill, is disbelieving for me.
The thing I'll say is the next episode has a very good twist. Okay.
I
wasn't really enjoying the episode, but the last few minutes is a very, very good twist in it.
Okay, I will get back to. We'll follow up on that. Cool. Again, myself and the captain, we watch it every Monday night. So I'll remember for next time if Bill gets a late recording. That's what he means. A question I have: what did you think of Tilly in the Mirror universe?
As in regular universe Tilly when she ended up in the Mirror universe.
Yeah. How they played her off with like the captain role or whatever.
Quite well.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
You see, I didn't because the premise is great. It's like you have the one who's kind of like a bit bumbly and a bit kind of insecure, and then you throw her in the deep end and she has to kind of just do this and it's a real powerful sort of thing, and that's great. But whichever way they edited it, it seemed like it snapped to it. Like she was all like bumbly and like, oh, I can't. And then as the way I remember it is that the communications thing came on, and it was like she had 1 second to make this happen, and then she just executed coming across as the badass captain without any problem. And I thought it was kind of like,
right.
That was a bit. It's a bit weird, literally 1 second she's stuttering, and the next second she has a flawless performance. Like, Jesus, you should really get into acting because that's really good. So I just the way they executed that was kind of a bit weird for me. It just didn't seem very realistic. But feck it, it's Trek. We're in a mirror universe. None of it's realistic. So But anyway, it's, I suppose in summation, after the last episode, so this is the episode prior to the one that you've just watched today, I have renewed hopes for the franchise. It's kind of like that was a solid episode. You really made me feel when Burnham had to deal with Tyler. So I look forward to this next one.
Cool.
Bit of Star Wars follow up.
Sure.
Okay. So, a really quick thing on the subreddit. The subreddit was kind of like, I suppose, was like a microcosm for the world, in that there was many people who were like, I agree with Edgar and Bill that The Last Jedi was terrible, and loads of people who were like, you're 110% wrong, it's actually the best movie ever. And I find that just endlessly fascinating, that it can be so polarizing.
It's very interesting how polarizing it is, yeah.
It's really interesting.
And I want to make really clear at this point that there is a lot of really, really bad criticism of it out there.
Oh yeah, but yeah, totally. I think we attempted to criticize it from a sort of like filmic point of view. Do you know? I think our criticism was like, agree with it or not. I think we tried to do it very much like, you know, as in this does nothing for the story, or this comes out of nowhere and things like that. But I know what you're referring to, and yes,
I don't think we ended up in the misogynistic criticism camp, and I don't think we ended up in the entitled fanboy why they didn't do it the way I like camp. I just didn't think it was that good a film.
Have you seen the re-edit of Jedi that some misogynistic group did? Or not seen,
The Last Jedi.
Of The Last Jedi, yeah.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, there's a thing, and I was kind of like, what? What's going on here? Why are you doing this? Like, and it was really funny because I read through, someone shared it on Twitter, and I read through their cuts. Like, they outlined a whole load of like, this will be cut and that will be cut, and I know their agenda was obviously get rid of all women.
Yeah.
And like, okay, A, that is terrible, right? We need to make this very clear. It's very, very terrible. And then like B, it's like, but you're making the movie worse here, right? Like, you're like, their goal is like, let's make The Last Jedi a better movie. It's like, no, but you see, when you take out chunks of it like that, you're making it a worse movie. So you're doing none of it. Like, it's so infuriating. It's so stupid, and people just need to stop with that. It's just nonsense.
Because like they were the least worst characters in it.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, totally. But the other thing, what you're saying about the people who are kind of like the fanboy sort of thing, like they're never, it's never going to work out for them. I kind of feel sorry. Like, people are kind of like, oh, like, I'm not getting the Luke of my youth back. And it's like, but it's never coming back, you know? And
yeah, because that was 40 years ago.
Yeah, and I don't understand why people cling on to it. Like, I can totally see people...
Klingons are from Star Trek, man, not Star Wars.
Oh, God damn it, Bill.
No regrets.
I can totally see people saying, Edgar, that's really hypocritical, because you've talked long and hard about how, like Trek is not like the way it was before, and things like that. And I think the difference there is that I'm not looking for just a plain retelling of what occurred. Like, I saw loads of people be all like, oh, Luke was a hero. He kind of, you know, he came from nothing and worked his way up. We want to see more of that. And it's like, do you want us to retell the exact same story over and over and over again? I'm more looking for the spirit of the thing. Like, I think a thing needs to have the same spirit, but can have different characters. It can be totally different, as long as it still has the same spirit. And I still think that these movies, I think that these movies do not have the same spirit as the old ones. Anyhow, that was just meant to be a little sort of like commentary on what the subreddit did 10 minutes later. The two things. I think I know what's wrong with Star Wars.
What's that?
I think my main problem, I watched it again. I went with the captain because she hadn't seen it, so we went to cinema. And going into it a second time, when I wasn't trying to pay attention to story and things like that, I think the major problem is that it's too self-aware. Like, it knows it's Star Wars, it knows we know it's Star Wars, and it knows that it needs to kind of like subvert that. And there's so much of it that if you just remove the fact that we all know that this is Star Wars, it just is stupid. Like, I don't know, like a little line, this isn't a big deal or anything, but just kind of sort of highlights it. When they're on the salt planet, and the guys are in the trenches, and then one of the soldier like licks the soil, or licks the salt and goes, salt, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
you're only saying that because all we're thinking is, oh my god, is this Hoth again? Is this another ice planet? Like, we have to be told that because it knows that we know. And that is just like a recipe for just not a good movie, because then you're getting in the way of storytelling then when you're just trying to constantly reference and subvert everything that's in the culture already. And so that's what I think is the fundamental problem. And what they should have done, I've now come to understand, or come to the conclusion, is that they should have just abandoned that storyline, like left the Luke, Leia, Solo storyline and just told an entirely different story in the Star Wars universe. Like, how did the first Jedi come to be? How did the Force manifest itself? Go way far removed from everything that we know, so we don't constantly need to undercut and reference everything. So that's what I think is wrong with the thing. Thoughts?
They're weighted down by the existing mythology.
Bill, you're so good at summarizing my rambling. Like, I rambled for 10 minutes, and then listeners, you can go through this and you can see this happen on a near podcast by podcast basis. You're so good at it, Bill.
I am good at the concisification of Edgar's ramblacious thought mouth sayings.
Yeah. But what do you think about that? Do you think that's fair criticism?
I think there's an element of truth to that, and they're kind of edging towards something like that with the anthology films. I know it's still like Rogue One is still very much in the what's the one I'm trying to say here? Rogue One is still very much tied into the events of the original trilogy, or whatever, but it's with new characters and it's telling a sort of a parallel story. And then the other ones they have planned are for Han Solo and for Lando Calrissian. Isn't that the other one that's been suggested?
I think so. Yeah.
So they're kind of on. They're not fully where you're saying, but they're kind of going that direction. And as I said, I think Rogue One is a great film. I think it's a really, really good film. For a lot of those reasons, that it's not as weighed down. I don't know. I like the idea of finding what happens next after Return of the Jedi. I like the idea of seeing what happens, and I think there's great storytelling opportunities in coming back to Luke 30 or 40 years later, and how he has changed, with as he's gone through middle age, and what has happened to his idealism, etc. I think that's really fertile. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that that's the problem with Star Wars, but I would agree that they are weighted down with their existing mythology, that there's kind of too much to live up to and too much existing material there which can constrain their freedom of storytelling.
Okay, I see that. I don't agree. I think, like you were saying about Luke, seeing Luke through middle age as an example and how things change. That I think that is really fertile, but it's fertile in a sort of like subplot. But I think if we keep just like going forward with the one story, we constantly need to kind of like escalate what's going on. So it's like, there's a war, and then there's a bigger war, and then there's a bigger war again, and then I think. Absolutely. I think the more we go on, the I don't know, almost like the blander the major arcs will be, because you can't do something like, you can't just completely tear it down, and I don't know. Well, maybe you could do something like telling the story of what a rebel-run world is like, or rebel-run universe. But sure, we had that in the prequels, so to speak, and I don't know. Yeah, I still err on the side that I think that's the main problem, and I kind of think Disney's really milking it. Like, I think Disney's really going to town on the fact that we know it's Star Wars and they know it's Star Wars, and it's just, it's just a little bit uncomfortable. Oh, speaking of uncomfortable, I didn't want to bring this up, but like, it just leads itself in. When we went to watch it a second time, I've never been in a movie theater where jokes just did not land on the people there, and it is an intense feeling of discomfort when humor doesn't work. And I've never experienced this so much than with the Jedi, with the Last Jedi. The first time I watched it, everyone was getting all the jokes. Like when the little puffin things pop out, everyone was laughing, and there was even a few people going like "Aw" and things like that. That made it like fine. But when no one is laughing, good God, does the movie seem painfully awkward? Like really awkward. And there's loads of points I felt
like watching
really bad.
Big Bang Theory without the laugh track.
Yeah, exactly. And there was loads of points where it's kind of like, oh, I really hope the captain is enjoying this because I'm going to feel really bad, like having, her waste 2.5 hours of her night. And we came out of it and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, that was the silliest thing I've ever seen. So she isn't a fan either. But anyhow, so the final thing I want to bring up about Star Wars is in the subreddit, someone mentioned about a potential Rey and Kylo romance. Mm-hmm. What do you think about this? It struck me as an interesting idea.
My feelings on romance.
Well, okay, but pretend you're just like, forget being you, Bill. Pretend you're like a writer and you're thinking about how to make the most interesting story or things like that. I think Rey and Kylo could actually work. Like it seems like they're building up a relationship, and
yeah,
they could take that relationship to the next step, and that would be a very interesting idea. That you'd have someone from the light side dating, for one better word, someone from the dark side. That could be really interesting.
Do you think?
I think so, because it doesn't happen. When does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen in Star Wars. It's like Star Wars is a very clearly delineated bad guys and good guys, and it's like if Rey and Kylo were to get romantically involved, we could have a whole lot more discussion about listening to the two of them like talk together intimately could really be like a philosophical discourse on good versus evil. Mm-hmm. I think that could really work.
I don't think you require romance for that.
No,
discourse.
No. The romance would just be a kind of a nice
framing device.
A nice framing device, and something it really isn't expected. Like that just doesn't happen in Star Wars. That could be really interesting. I don't think they're going to do it. I'm almost certain they're not going to do it. But I thought it'd be really interesting.
I would hope not. I know. I couldn't see that happening and making sense in the context of him staying evil. Like for that to be, and let me get my thoughts in order for a second. For that to happen, with him staying evil and her staying good, would require like really reinforcing this. Like though there is a good bad, a good evil dichotomy here, which I'm not that keen on. I think it was, it's more interesting when it blurs those lines a little bit, exposes the hypocrisy of the older Jedis and that kind of thing. And so the only other way I could see it working is if Kylo was redeemed through love, and I would hate that.
Just as you said the words "redeemed through love," I was like, "Oh yeah, Bill, this isn't a serious suggestion from Bill." Yeah. I don't know. I think out of all the sort of possible romances that we have been shown in the Star Wars universe, the Rey Kylo thing is a thing that I think could work. It would certainly work better than Padme and Anakin, because that didn't work at all. I think it's an interesting theory. I think it's an interesting thing, and I just wanted to put on the show because I thought that bit of feedback or that bit of like speculation was show worthy. And I will put the Redditor's name in the show notes, because I've forgotten who you are and I do not have Reddit open in front of me at the moment. Anyhow, shall we crack on to the last two items of follow up?
Sure.
All right, these are all Bill. I have no idea what you're going to talk about. Hit me with it. What do you got?
I watched another TV show that we discussed, or that has certainly come up on the podcast before. One that I said that I was not going to watch.
Stranger Things.
I watched Stranger Things.
Both seasons?
Yes.
All right. Okay. What did you think? You posted this on Facebook. And
I did.
I did not read this because I was like, I guarantee you Bill will want to talk about this on the podcast. So
Absolutely.
I am coming to this fresh. I think, okay, hold on, wait. I think your aversion to plucky kids is so strong that you won't be able to see through them and you will not have liked it in general. But I can see you liking bits of it. Like, I can see you say, I don't know, liking some of the horror stuff, for example. But overall, I think you'll lean on the side of negative.
Okay.
Right. What's your thoughts?
The kids were not as plucky as I had feared.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They weren't like really annoying.
Who's your favorite kid? There's only one right answer, Bill. You better get it right, otherwise we're getting a divorce.
I am confident that your right answer is Dustin.
Oh yeah, but that means you have a different right answer.
I can't decide between Dustin and Lucas. I really like Lucas, especially in the first season, because he's wrong about everything in the first season. But he's he's like wrong for all of the right reasons. He's completely reasonable in saying, I don't trust Elle, and everything you're saying is completely ridiculous. Of course she's not a bloody psychic. That's absurd. Now, he's wrong, but fair enough. Like, you can see why he'd come to that wrong conclusion, which is always a thing I enjoy.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, you have demonstrated that you are perhaps the more intelligent person out of this duo, because I like Dustin purely because his the thing he does with his mouth is just really fun, and he's a really funny character. He just fills my heart with joy, Dustin.
No, he is a lot of fun. He's a bit of an arse in the second season.
Yeah, he is totally. Yeah, totally. But he redeemed it. He redeemed it at the end with the I've no idea what it's called. Are they called jerry curls? The hair.
I'm not sure if it's exactly a jerry curl, but it certainly looks a lot like a jerry curl.
Yeah, he has some funky hair going on at the ball. I was like,
and everyone's making fun of him, and I was like, that's like amazing hair. He looks so good.
No, he doesn't. He looks terrible, man.
Oh, it looked great.
No, are you being serious?
Yes, I thought it was great.
Oh, Bill, he looked like a train wreck, man.
But I quite like jerry curls, so...
No, oh god, I can't believe you think that. You're so different. Okay, anyhow, plucky kids. The kids were not as plucky as you thought. That's good. Okay, I didn't expect that. What else?
Mike and Will are just completely uninteresting to me. As characters.
Yeah, well, obviously in the first one, it's hard to be interested in Will, other than, we need to save him. Mike he's fierce bland. There's really not a whole lot going on there other than I am either falling in love with Elle or I am missing Elle. Yeah. And the plot kind of happens through me a little bit, but there's no real thing to him. Yeah.
I thought the romance felt kind of forced and weird between him and Elle. I did like how at the end of the first season, after everything that Nancy and Jonathan have gone through together, she doesn't end up with Jonathan. He doesn't win the girl. I thought that was really good. I appreciated that.
I think I agree. I think the show does a wonderful job of turning Steve from the bad guy into a complete hero.
Yeah,
and then from a complete hero in the second season to kind of like a source of ridicule as well. Like, it's just Steve is handled so well, and like when we were watching it, myself and the captain, like we loved the Steve scenes. Like, they're so much fun. And you know, the second one where they're like they're in the like trailer park or wherever.
In the junkyard.
In the junkyard, yeah. And they're there to fight the Demogorgons. And Steve is all like, being all impressed. It's like, I've done this before. And it's like, yeah, but you remember when you did it before? You were a crying mess, man. It was so funny. So good.
I really liked how he ended up, like, his role at the end of the second season was looking after the kids.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that it was belittling him that he was doing that, or that he was being emasculated or being made fun of because of that. It was just, that's what he can do. and that's a thing that needs to be done. So he's going to do it, and he's going to do it well. And it's not like this is demeaning to you because you're a man. It's just he's the right person for this job right now. And like that's good. You know, that's good gender politics.
I think Steve is up there with my favorite characters. My favorite character, and this is not entirely serious, is Bob. I adore Bob, man.
I couldn't really decide about him for a long time, but ultimately I did like him. Like he's just this kind of loser dork, and even though he's this loser dork, Winona Ryder is in love. Like Winona Ryder is in love with him.
But he's so nice, and he's so understanding of everything. It's like, oh,
and so uncool.
yeah. You know, like when they're like, oh, okay, so your family like was involved in opening up the portal to hell. Okay, I still love you, Winona Ryder. It's just like, go on, Bob.
Yeah,
I love him. I think though, like the way he met his end could have been a little bit more. He could have milked it a little bit more. He kind of maybe died a little bit unemphatically. He's like trying to make it out, and he's nearly there, and then the monster just plow him in the lobby of the building.
He kind of deserved it, but like, cause he just stood there for a second, looking at Winona Ryder.
Yeah, but a second in film, Bill, is not a real second. You know, like that could have been.
I didn't measure it, but he stood there for a bit, even though there was a monster behind him.
Right, but like he could have stood there for 5 minutes, right? But that in film world could have been like a fraction of a microsecond. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, way film can like stretch time, Bill. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Well, no, what? It totally does. You were like, he stood there.
Yes, I'm aware that filmmakers can change the perception of time.
Yes. So you're like, he stood there for a second looking at Winona Ryder. And what I'm saying is, he might have stood there for like a fraction of a microsecond, but the filmmakers were like, let's elongate that so we can feel it a little bit more. You know, I'm not. Did you get me? Like,
yeah, but like that. It wasn't that. Like, it wasn't that. It was only a fraction of a second, and they stretched it out. It was like he saw Winona Ryder, and then he stood there, and then the Demogorgon ate him.
Okay, maybe I'm not remembering correct, but anyway, yeah, he did deserve it, and it was a bit unemphatic, and I'm sad he's gone because Bob was a legend. In Bob we trust, you know.
I like how at the very start of the first season they inverted the horror movie thing. Because Nancy goes off to have sex, and she doesn't die, but Brenda stays behind and doesn't have sex, and she does die, which is like,
was it Brenda
or Barbara? Barb.
Yeah, Barb.
Barb stays behind and doesn't have sex, and she's the one who dies, which is like total inversion of every 80s horror film.
Oh,
where sex kills.
Okay, so that's interesting because I don't watch horror films because I am a big scaredy cat. And I don't like being frightened. So I actually don't know anything about the tropes of it. I'm not even going to lie. I may have spent a significant portion of Stranger Things underneath a pillow.
Hiding behind the captain.
We have a funny running joke where whenever I go hide behind a pillow, after it's done, I like pop out and be like, it's okay. I got this. You're fine. As if I'm doing the protecting, and she's there, like, you know, like a stone-faced killer watching this, not bothered at all. I'm like, oh god, it's the scary monster gone.
I liked how in the second season the representative of the labs was a kind of a sympathetic character, like the doctor. He was kind of, you know. He wasn't as malevolent as Papa was in the first one. Mm-hmm. He was a guy doing a job, and he kind of wanted to do right.
Yeah, I agree. They brought an awful lot more complexity to the whatever that's called, the building.
Hawkins Labs.
Hawkins Labs. Totally agree with that point.
Edgar?
Bill.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Which character out of Stranger Things do I identify most with? Which is the most Bill character, do you think?
Okay. It has to be... So it's going to be someone who's nerdy, who's intelligent, I would imagine. So I'm going to say it's not Lucas because you brought him up already. I don't think you're going to bring it back to Lucas.
Okay.
I don't think it's any of the kids. I want it to be Bob. but it's not.
It's not Bob.
Not the sheriff. Oh, hang it. School teacher. It's the school teacher.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Clark.
I love Mr. Clark.
I love the way he just is so unaware of what's going on. Like, he comes within inches several times of being told, oh yeah, like, hell is, like, coming upon us. And he just continues on his existence, and he just dispenses scientific wisdom and talks about D&D with the three guys. It's just like, oh my god, you're so good.
That's like, because there's so much that I appreciate here. Obviously, he's a teacher, and that's what I spend most of my employment doing, teaching. He has got a rockin' mustache. I love his style.
I disagree. His style is terrible, man.
Oh man, it's class. Those knitted tank tops, it's absolutely class. I would love to have the audacity to pull that off.
What? Why? Oh, I know why.
I just like how that looks.
I know why. It's because you're old, Bill.
I'm going to pass over that. And his students go to him to talk about D&D and stuff. So I'm like that, except my students come to talk to me about metal.
Are you like
D&D.
that?
What?
Are you genuinely like that? Do students approach you like after hours, so to speak, and be like, "Let's talk about a thing, teacher"?
No, but certainly in lessons, and I keep in touch. Well, I don't keep in touch with, but like I like talking to students after I've stopped teaching them. Like if I meet them, once they finished school or whatever, I like to catch up with them and talk to them about stuff like that. I like to talk to them like about music and things outside of what I'm actually teaching.
There's been several times where I have met an old student of mine, and they were like, "Edgar, hi," and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" And they're like, "Good. Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No, who are you?" And they're like, "My name's Daniel." I'm like, "Okay, how do I know each other?" They're like, "You used to teach me guitar." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice, Daniel. How are you getting on?" It's like, I don't remember them at all. Mainly because like I taught them when they were like 6 or 7, and like they're then 12, and you're like, there's a big difference between 6 and 7 and 12. But it wasn't like me to after hours be like, let's talk about stuff. Or even in lessons, it's like, no, we've a job to do here, children. We're doing the job, and then y'all get out of my house. It's as simple as that. I was a very strict teacher, very, very strict teacher. Anyhow, I digress. Mr. Clark, whopping mustache and terrible fashion sense.
Great fashion sense. And the final point I was going to bring up for follow-up here.
Hang on. Sorry, I know we're going way, way long with follow-up, but we said it was going to be a follow-up intensive episode. The Stranger Things, season 2. The episode with the like biker gang.
Yeah.
Is the worst piece of trash ever. Now, again, this is not anything new. Like, this isn't a hot take.
You mean the gang in Chicago that Elle goes off to?
Yeah, and then Elle comes back and she's all punked up and stuff, and it's just stupid. Like, like, what? Why is it there? Like, it does nothing. Like, it would have been, had they done that, they go off to, Elle goes off and she goes all like learning about her powers with the people, and then she goes back to Hawkins, and there's a big fight with the evil people, and it looks like the day is going to be lost, but then enroll her friends or whatever. That would have been okay. But it's like, she goes for what seems like, a few nights, learns some stuff, has a questionable moral turnaround, and then just returns back and nothing is said of it again. It's just complete trash, and it doesn't fit the aesthetics of the thing. It's just stupid. Like, what were they doing? That annoyed me to no end. Didn't like it at all.
I think it would have been terrible if the gang had turned up and helped them at the end.
But it's better than she just goes for a bit. Like, what's the function of it? Like, she goes essentially just to have someone question her morality for a little bit, and it's like, we didn't. And she learns of it, and it in story terms, it expands the mythology of the world, and we find out more about the project in general. I think it would have been far too neat for them just to roll in at the end. I would have hated it. I disagree. I think like, you know, you make connections with someone and you're getting a bit of bother and your friends come and help you out. That's, you know, I don't think that's too neat at all. I think that happens in real life all the time.
No, the circumstances under which they met each other and under which they left, I thought it would have really jarred for me.
Okay. I still think though it didn't work. Like the aesthetics as well didn't work. It just like I appreciate expanding mythology, but I just think they just did that terribly. I think it's the one downer in an otherwise really good season.
For any of our listeners who've ever read Grant Morrison's comic series, The Invisibles, I'm assuming you all, and if you've also watched Stranger Things, you all noticed that the Eights gang were clearly an invisible cell.
You're going to have to explain to me what an invisible cell is.
Just so the comic book The Invisibles is about an organization, or it features an organization named The Invisibles, and like a cell as in a group of them. It's clear to me that the gang were a cell of Invisibles. I won't go into any more into it because it won't be interesting for anyone who hasn't read the comics, but it's clearly there.
So two super quick emails that I just want to make Artifexia aware of. There is an official Artifexian Discord server for the patrons, but there is also an unofficial one started by Dr. Bunny Flipflop, who I think has made has made the show before. So I'm going to leave the links.
Yeah, we've mentioned Bunny Flip Flop a few times.
We have. So I am going to leave the link to that server in the show notes if anyone wants to go there. I believe there's some interesting things happening over there. I haven't been there yet. I've been trying to manage my Discord recently. But I believe Dr. Bunny Flip Flop is making a language that's impossible for me to pronounce, which is nice. Thank you. And Asmodean _ hangs out there, I think. So some Artifexi characters hang out there. So if anyone else is interested, go check out the Discord. Very briefly, I have a complaint about Discord. I want to level against Discord in a public way.
Okie doke.
Or maybe a complaint against Patreon and Discord. You know, Bill, when you're like wiring a plug.
Yes.
And you know the way you like connect up all the wires, and then nothing happens until you like turn the electricity on. Yeah.
That sounds correct.
Right?
Yes.
Because it would be crazy that the moment you connected up the wires, everything worked. That's going to lead to problems. Right?
It's going to lead to injury.
Injury, maybe even death. Like it would be, by all accounts, a bad situation. Patreon and Discord have this thing going whereby when you connect up the wires, everything's live immediately. So I was setting up my Discord. I was just tinkering away and being all like, I'm going to take my time, get it all correct, blah, blah, blah. I hit the connect Patreon and Discord. And then immediately people start flooding in. And everyone's like, hey, wow, this is amazing. And I'm there still trying to understand what in the name of God Discord is. And I had to like tell the people, I was like, you're going to have to watch me build this thing in real time. And then there's just like, I had to go through many iterations before it was right. And I had to go through the embarrassment of people watching me do this. And like, things like, are things right now, people? And then they're like, no, I still have access to a thing I shouldn't have access to. I'm like, oh God. And it was just a disaster. When connecting up the wires should not be an automatic launch, Patreon and Discord need to fix that. There should be a clear connect everything up and then a launch button when you're finished editing your page. It seems so obvious, but apparently it hasn't dawned on either of these two companies. So that's my complaint.
The official Discord for patrons, is that exclusively the kind of main YouTube channel patrons, or is it open to podcast patrons as well?
Oh, we don't have... It is not open to podcast patrons, mainly because the way it works with Patreon and Discord is that when a person patronizes someone on Patreon, they get automatically filled into the correct like layers on Discord, because there's certain parts that be hidden from certain patrons depending on how much they pledge and all sorts of jazz. Yeah. So it's like a symbiotic thing to one Patreon page, not that you can't do it to multiple ones.
Okay.
We may eventually set up one for the podcast, but I still prefer Reddit as the primary means of discussion. because a lot of people like Discord. I don't know if I'm a fan. Like, I have it there because if people want to use it, they can. But personally, I'm not a fan. It doesn't maintain thread order the way that Reddit does, and I think that's a huge plus point for Reddit. Anyhow, sidetrack. There's an unofficial Discord server. Go check it out. Links in the show notes. Dominic, the space cartographer from way back when, I think like they got a mention on like the second or third show.
Yeah, that's an OG podcast fan.
An OG Artifexi fan has made a web app that functions as a calculator for some of my star building stuff, and it's actually a really good little web app and it looks really slick. So I'm going to also put that in the show notes. So if you do not want to sit through, I don't know, 2 hours of Edgar talking about stars, you can just use this calculator. It'll do all the work for you. Great crack. So that too is in the show notes for anyone who wants it.
Cool. Very cool.
All right. Now, let's talk. Do you want to talk flag corner or musical language?
Flags.
All right. It's a triumphant return of flag corner, Bill. I think we've hit gold with this one. We had a email from a person called N6 who sent in a flag for us to analyze, and I'm pretty sure this is the worst flag I've ever seen. I was not aware of it before I received this email, and if this can be trumped, I don't know. I'm going to have to implode into a black hole or something, because this is truly horrific. Do you want to open up the link there?
Oh, class.
Alright, so this is the flag of... Alright, and listeners, remember, the job of Flag Corner is for one of us to paint a verbal picture of what we're seeing in front of us. This might be beyond our capability to do. This is testing the limits of word painting. So this is a flag for some extremist group in Russia, I believe. Who has, they have a big acronym. I don't understand what it is. And if I may, do you want me to attempt a description here, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this sort of the basic form of this flag is we have a rectangle. It's a a horizontal tricolor of like neon green, hot pink, and black in descending order. And on the left side of the flag, we have a triangle cut in, which is white. So our primary colors are
at the hoist.
At the hoist. I should know this terminology. I made a video about the thing. So at the hoist, we have a white triangle, green, pink, and black stripes. All right. Now, oh God, I'm going to proceed from left to right. At the very leftmost portion of the flag, we have the letter X, right? An elongated double height letter X with two single height capital B's squished up beside it as a sort of graphic thing. And that graphic thing is repeated on top of one another up the side of the flag. Maybe about 1/20th the width of the flag. And I think it's meant to resemble some sort of stitching, but also be letters. It's completely illegible. It's no good. Then right beside it, there's like a bold capital C, which seems to have little or nothing to do with anything else. Then there's like a... oh, God.
I know what that is.
Oh, what's the C?
I'll get to it at the end.
Okay. Oh, Jesus, here, 2 hours later. So in the triangle, we have the words Esperanto in a sort of semicircle. Below that, we have Festo, with est being in brackets. Then in the middle of the triangle, we have a green star with the letter E in white. And then each point of the 5-pointed star, we have the letters FOTSE, and they stand for Felicio Organizico Tempo Socialio Energio. And below that, we have La Paco. And then we have, either side of the star, we have M.I.or. And on the other side, we have what I believe to be his Russian letters, MNP. And then, oh, I get it now. The triangle has measurements marked on it.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's what the C is. The C is the hypotenuse.
the C is the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle.
I think that's a right angle triangle.
Well,
Hold on.
Well, Bill, I think your hypothesis is correct because just above the triangle we have a small.
Oh, it's actually a little bit big. It's not quite right angled. No, it's a little bit bigger. But anyway, it
Oh,
doesn't matter.
okay. I think your hypothesis was correct though, or you're right in thinking that because above the triangle we have a small depiction of Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah.
And like, yes, you heard that correct, listeners. On this flag, there is a tiny depiction of Pythagoras' theorem, and then to the left of him, I think, is that Lenin?
That's Lenin, yeah.
We have a golden Lenin staring at Pythagoras' theorem, and then, oh god, where do I even go? Below that, in the black portion, we have like, I'm not making this up, right? We have a phone number and website. And then below that again, we have another phone number, a different phone number, and a different website. You're like, what? What even is this? And like on the far right, we have a hippie symbol with antithesis written underneath it. And then we have more measurements going up the side of the flag, with more words I don't understand. Then there's like a golden torch, a disembodied hand holding a golden torch with more Russian writing. And then that's not even to get to the piece de resistance, which is like this vortex of Russian words that is spiraling around the center of this flag. And then are they like two cartoon cows in the middle? Hold on.
They are two cartoon cows.
And one has like pink horns and the other one has like green horns, and they look to be doing some sort of like dance. It's like, what is this?
Well, I don't think they're doing a dance. It's just their heads, and they're at kind of a jaunty, cartoony angle.
They're at a jaunty... And bearing in mind that this is meant to be a flag for an extremist group. I think whoever did the graphic design here needs to watch the symbolism here, because they look far too merry for an extremist group. And it just what? And the person who sent us this, N6, sent us another picture of the thing actually being used in the wild. We'll put it in the show notes. Like, you can see someone, a real-life person, with a whole load of other people holding this flag in real life. This is a thing that has been manufactured and is printed, and people use it. And it blows my mind. Oh, was that an adequate depiction?
That was an adequate depiction. I'm not sure that those are X's and B's.
Okay,
they
what
might
do
be
you think?
Chaz and Vez.
I don't know what that is. Russian?
The Cyrillic, yeah, the Cyrillic symbols for Ch and V.
Okay. Yeah, geez,
But I mean, that's very small.
Any Russian speakers here? Someone has to translate this flag for me, because I am so interested in finding out what the big massive text is.
And when it says MNP on the side there, that's actually M-I-R. So it's Mir. The same as on the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think Mir means peace.
Okay. No, okay, but let's unpack this a little bit, right? Again, an extremist group here. Why is there peace on their flag? And why is there Esperanto when they're Russian? And what has Lenin got to do with both peace and Esperanto?
Internationalist language, so... Also, I think you're meant to read the E, the green E, the green star with the E is an Esperantist symbol. And I think you're meant to read the letters at its points clockwise, because clockwise it reads Festo, which is what's written above the flag.
Oh yeah, that's entirely fair. Do you know what Festo means?
I do not.
There's too many words on this. Man, the phone numbers kill me though. Like, there's phone numbers on it. Like, what?
Yeah, it's marvelous. It's absolute. It's. I am confident that this has to be some kind of joke. Like, I don't think it's an actual.
I mean, but we have somewhat photographic evidence.
Oh yeah, but like, I mean, they might be flying the flag for the crack rather than this is a serious flag. Yeah, Esperanto was mentioned on their website, all right.
Are you going? Bill, Google's going to love you.
Well, I'm on facel-portos.ru, which is one of the ones listed.
So yeah, hold on. Okay, so what
Esperanto's a big thing of theirs, apparently.
And can you confirm that these are some sort of extremist organization?
I don't think they're extremists.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it would be hard to say from just this, but... They might. I would suspect it's either a joke or it's just like fringe weird banana stuff.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. If it's a joke, that's less horrific. But no, hang on. No, I actually, do you know what? I don't even care if it's a joke. The fact that it's been printed and they're being used, just like, oh my god. It's just, there's a picture of a real happy looking chap here on the side of a mountain holding the flag. You're like, what is this?
It's amazing.
Oh my god, I am so sorry to every single flag that I have slagged on this podcast. Like, we have reviewed works of art compared to this. Like, we have reviewed the vexillological version of the Mona Lisa compared to this. This is astoundingly horrible. Like, and I need to translate it. Okay, Artifexia, anyone studying Russian, anyone who is Russian, anyone who knows how to speak Russian, someone needs to translate this flag. I want to know what all this text in the whirlpool is.
Here's a translation from one of the websites. Sparta is a thing that appears here a few times. Spartaportos.org. Sparta,
as in like Sparta in Greece.
Well, it's an acronym, and you can see it beside the torch there, where it's like C, the sort of pi A P T A. That would read Sparta in Cyrillic, and it stands apparently for the Agricultural Poetized Association for the Development of Labor Activity. Huh. Yeah, this is like weird. Like seems like really weird kind of fringe political stuff. I don't think in a dangerous way, just in kind of a sort of a kooky kind of way. Oh no, hold on. To catch up and overtake America in terms of productivity, economic, military, intellectual power. Cooperate with unification of veterans of war and labor. Chairman of the Associate was hero of the Soviet Union. Okay.
Bill, I was trying to say this to you earlier. I don't know how you're very gung ho with wanting to Google these things. Like, you know, the Google bots are going to be looking at it and being like, "Is he some sort of like an extremist sympathizer now?"
I'm sure I'm already on international watch lists. They're very pro Esperanto and this other website as well. Developed the theory of happiness of Pythagoras for application in science, industry, and agriculture of modern Russia. There's a good few references to the Ukraine in both these websites. So, are they trying to like reunify the two countries or something like that?
If they do,
yeah, this is brilliant. This is really, really, this is a hell of a find.
But there's not like, okay, even if we stripped all the writing and all the pictures of Lenin and all that jazz, and we stripped it down to
all of the graphic elements.
Yeah, we stripped all the graphic elements. It's still not nice. Like, they couldn't even decide on 4 colors that are kind of nice together.
Yeah.
Like, it's still, it's so bad. It's so bad. Man, that is a special sort of bad. N6, I'm so thankful you sent me this. It's glorious.
It's great.
Shall we move on?
It's going to break my heart to leave this behind.
Leave it behind. I've got it open in front of me and it's staying open in front of me. Every so often I'd be like, Bill, you never guess what? The cows actually have little speech bubbles that'll drop you little nuggets of what's going on.
And extra bits.
Links in the show notes, by the way. You gotta check. If you never go to the show notes, that's entirely fine. But today, dear listener, you have to go to the show notes and you have to do
yourself a favor.
Do yourself a favor. In fact, do your friends and family a favor. Show it to them too. Everyone needs to see this. Anyhow. Musical languages. Do you want to talk a bit about musical languages?
Sure. So a video has been doing the rounds. I've seen it a couple times on Facebook, and it was sent into us by Zen10, I think.
Yep.
It was Zen10, yep. A video uploaded by Tom Scott, who's a very popular YouTuber. But the majority of the content was actually from 12 Tone, who's a channel that I already follow, and they do videos on music theory and stuff. And it was talking about the language Sol Re Sol, which was a language invented in the 1900s by a Frenchman by the name of Francois Sud. And it was an attempt to create a universal language arising from music. And it's a cool video, and I would suggest to people to check it out.
It is a cool video, and it will be in the show notes, and people should go check it out. But the minute I read the email, and even before watching the video, I was like, this doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that fact was borne out in the video. And I think the concept of trying to do a musical universal language is just, it's like fundamentally silly, and I don't understand why anyone would pursue it. And it blows my mind that like somebody would. Clearly that person was a musician and thought that music was truly universal, but it's not. So like it's not going to work. But what the thing I found really interesting about it though is that because of the form it took, this musical language took, it could be applicable to sign language and things like colors, like a color language. And that's way more universal than a musical language, because a musical language cannot be understood with anyone who is tone deaf. It's just like,
there's that. Yes, there is that.
Like my mother is I think tone deaf. Like I've tested her before, and I've been like, here are intervals, right? You need to tell me direction. What is up and what is down? Like, are we going higher or are we going lower? No idea. Can't tell, literally. So the idea of you having two notes and those two notes would simplify a word. It would mean exactly nothing to a person like that. So it's broken, completely broken.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the musical element isn't actually inherent to the language. It's just that's kind of where he started out, and you can use any 7 symbols to cipher this kind of underlying structure.
Yeah. And literally any other 7
questions about it, because when if you don't hear a lot of the, like if you don't have a large sample of the speech in communicating with someone, how can you tell whether someone says, for example, re, fa, re, or mi, sol, mi? Because they're both a minor third up and down. So without an external context, there's no way to interpret which is which.
Yeah.
If it's just the pitch.
Agreed. And yeah, even if you had some context, I still think it would be like, let's say if you had like a minor, like a C major minor, like a dyad, would mean one thing, and a G major minor dyad, like as in the key of, would be another thing. Like that's
as in do re do and sol la sol.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That's fine if the 2 keys happen immediately. Then maybe you might be able to distinguish it, like, oh, this is in C and this is in G or whatever. But then, like, if you have a thing in G and then there's a whole lot of D and then you go to C, then they just lose context as well. So there's a whole lot of problems with that, and it blows my mind that someone took this seriously. It completely blows my mind. So I believe Zenten's email questioned, like, what do you think of musical language? I think musical languages are a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Awful. And they should not be pursued at all. Unless it's just for the crack, you know.
And the idea of it being a universal language, it suffers from the problem that a lot of universal languages suffer from, like how Esperanto is meant to be universal. And, you know, there's a lot of things to like about Esperanto, but it's essentially all based on Romantic and Germanic languages. Like, it's all these 2 families of Indo-European languages that it takes everything from. So, you know, it's obviously going to be a lot easier it's a lot more universal to Europeans than it is universal to other people. Now, the statistics on where it's actually caught on don't support that in some ways, because it's quite popular in Korea or something for some reason. But I think it's still absurd to say it's a universal language when it's from such a limited cultural background. But yeah, so this is a universal language using music, but it's based on a heptatonic Western scale.
Yeah.
Like, if you come from a culture that has primarily pentatonic music, then that's kind of not really all that easily accessible to you. If you come from a culture that, you know, doesn't divide up scales and or octaves in that way and has music that to us is primarily microtonal, then it's not all that relevant. So
yeah, it suffers from all the problems that a real universal language has, but then also dumps on a whole other set of problems in that it's musical, which I think is a poor move. Yeah, there you go.
But as I said, the underlying structure as a cipher for any kind of sequence of 7 symbols, there's an interesting thing there. But the specific implementation of it just kind of doesn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah, I think the video kind of was framed like that as well. It's like, here, let me explain how this worked, and then let me explain why it didn't work, and then look at the cool places that it could go. And that is the interesting point.
Yeah.
I love the way 2 musicians, or one practicing musician and one ex-musician, have just completely, like, dead in the water the idea that that a musical language could work. You think of all people would be like, no, of course music is the universal communicator. That makes perfect sense. We're just like, no, doesn't work. End of.
That's such a nonsense. Music is a universal language. It's so I find that like actually offensive. That idea.
Fully agree. It's like and your point earlier about different musical customs. You know, nearly every human on the planet enjoys music or can perform music to some degree, but like we have vastly different systems under which that performs.
Yeah.
So that, like, someone go like, oh, I listen to the Beatles a bit, like, and, you know, I think music is a universal communicator. It's like, you play the Beatles for someone in, I don't know, northern Siberia, and you ask them to say whether or not they think it's universal. They'd probably look at that and be like, that's disgusting. We have a whole different set of things.
I don't know if I agree with that specific that specific example, because Western music is so ubiquitous, but certainly the other way around.
Okay, fair. Yeah, that's that. I accept that. Yeah, definitely. The other way around.
Like if you take Tuvan throat singing and play it to, you know, people from Carlo or Leitrim, to pick 2 random places, who have no exposure to music outside of like the Western concept, and who aren't artists or who aren't musicians and are into thinking about things a different way. They're just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think. No, actually, I was going to say something offensive to people who say things like that, but I'm just not going to do that.
Okay.
We're just going to move straight on.
Also, it's not a language.
Oh, yeah, by definition.
Like, there are linguistic ways to talk about it. You can use language as a really, really good metaphor for things in a lot of ways. And you can say, you know, grappling with the idioms of a specific style, like, you know, the language of jazz or whatever. That makes sense. But you can't, through music alone, explain to someone how to boil an egg.
But you can if you're Steve Vai.
No, you can't.
Okay, I'm not going to explain it. He has a bit... Wait, I am going to explain it. He has a big thing where he's all like, I talk through my guitar, and he like...
Right.
He notates his speech like in music. So like he'll sit down and be like, I don't know, just read something here. Sketching his scientific imagination, Commons tweaks the astronomical dials. And he will like mirror that inflection in his guitar solos, and he's like this big wanky thing where he's all like, yeah man, it's like me and the guitar, we're connected, man, you know, my guitar speaks through me. And it's like, shut up, Steve Vai. It's like,
yeah, and even then it's using English.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a huge problem with that. Anyway,
I also like that thing that like Peter Frampton does with his guitar, and then like Daft Punk and stuff do it with the talk box. That's a really cool effect.
Yes, but yeah, we're slightly off topic about whether or not.
Yes, it is off the topic.
But yeah,
but it's cool.
TLDR. Musical languages, I think both Bill and I, it's fair to say that we don't approve of them per se. But that video is interesting, and you should go check it out. Links in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, is that it for email?
That is it for email. Okay, so I did not do any world building for the main topic today because I am back to making videos and they are consuming most of my time. But I would like to talk about the flag video I made, which by the time this podcast come out will be a relatively old video. But I just want to get this on air. There's two things that I think people will be interested in that came up in the comments beneath this video. And they are a brilliant thread on Martian vexillology and a website that uses neural networks to check whether or not the flag you have made is good or bad. And they are two really good links. They're in the show notes if you want them. I think it's highly worth checking out. Did you check them out?
I have not.
Check out the Martian vexillology. I'd love to see what you think.
Okay.
You should be able to blitz read that really quick.
Cool.
So TLDR for the Martian vexillology link is this Redditor is basically saying, well, hang on, do our assumptions about how flags work on different planets? And he uses Mars as an example and says, will the official, unofficial flag of Mars actually work on Mars? And as far as he can surmise, the answer is no. And I think this is a really good one for world builders, like to factor in like atmosphere and wind speed and all of these sort of things, and to ask, do you have to come up with a different form of vexillology? And the Redditor suggests that you would have to basically have vertical flags all the time, because a long flag will not fly in the wind, and that has a whole bunch of ramifications for how like design happens. And
that's so cool.
It's really, really cool, isn't it? And it's just a really simple question that person has asked. Would a flag be able to fly on Mars? Answer, no. How can we modify? And they come up with this. So you should definitely go check it out. And I agree thoroughly with this guy. I haven't looked into it or ran numbers because, again, atmospheric modeling is beyond my capability. But it makes intuitive sense to me that when you have a low density atmosphere with low wind speeds, your flag is going to be less liable to flap around. Ergo, you need to make it thinner and longer, so the bit that can flap has the potential to do so. It's a really fascinating thread. Links in the show notes.
And that has interesting implications for how things are represented in culture outside of flag specifically. Like in nowadays, we are used to the idea of soldiers and officials having, say, flag pins or flags on their uniforms following that shape.
Mm.
But if it's, as suggested here, that it would be kind of a height 4 to width 1 ratio, or 4 or more heights to width of 1 ratio, tall but narrow, you wouldn't be able to present those in the same way. And maybe symbols and colours would be represented as, like, would they be represented in the seams of clothing?
Yeah.
Or, on like running vertically on buildings instead.
Yeah. Yeah, it could completely change how the feel of the sort of civic design language is implemented. Like, totally good. And again, just from a really simple
civic design is a universal language.
The universal language thing has really annoyed you, hasn't it, Bill?
It has, yeah.
Oh god! So go check it out. And then the machine learning thing is really self-explanatory. Put in a flag. It uses neural networks to tell you whether it's a good flag. Do you know what I might do after the show? I might see if I can put in that Russian flag and see what it tells me.
I was about to suggest that.
Well, hang on. I wonder. Do you think we could? Have we got time? Let's do it.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's find that
do
link.
It.
Let's do it. Save image as. I'll do this. Okay. The neural network isn't not as smart, but it isn't as thorough as I thought it would be. I thought it'd give you a synopsis as to why. It just says bad flag, confidence 1.0.
Oh.
I am fully confident that this is a flag.
Excellent.
And I love as well. I love the evaluation time. It took 0.2 of a second to figure out that this is trash.
Ugh.
But it's something that I've been meaning to play around with, like put in objectively what I think is objectively good flags and see where it spits it out. People were saying that it works pretty good. Like unless you do something stupid like upload a thing with transparency or whatever. It's pretty good at identifying good flags. So I think that's really cool. So it's Flagger.mycaden.com. Links in the show notes. Go check it out. Okay, and then the final point on the flag building video, and kind of like the main point, is I think I've heard from other people that the flag building video I made was the best video I've ever made, and from one person they told me it was the best video I have ever made and I will ever make. Like they were. Yeah, I know.
You've peaked, Edgar.
I know, right? They were hugely complimentary of it, and like. On upload day, it was a really weird video. On upload day, I was so confident. I was like, this is good. Like, I'm really feeling good about this one. Hit upload, everything goes fine. And then the video is still really well received, and I still think it's a good video. But the hive mind of the internet have between them crafted a much better video. And I want to describe it here, and I want someone, because I know people in Artifexia make YouTube videos, I want someone to make this video, because I think it needs to exist, and I think I kind of missed a trick with my video. So, the approach I took was like, we have good flag, bad flag, and it's been heralded by a lot of people as being the Bible of vexillology, and you don't stray from it or whatever. And because of the email we received many months ago, I was like, I want to try and subvert that and introduce people to a much better sort of set of guidelines.
Yeah. And you used the commission report on the guiding principles of flag design from the North American Association, yeah.
And I think that was like opened up people's eyes to a few things, and I think it worked as intended. But what I should have done, I should have taken the point of looking at flag design throughout history and throwing out everything. Like throwing out good flag, bad flag, and throwing out the commission report. Because so many people were like, yeah, okay, these rules that you say are only rules with respect to our modern tastes. But go back in the day, and there was a reason why there was tons of text. So the video I think needs to be made is a video that subverts good flag, bad flag, and the commission reports, and takes you on a journey throughout flexological history, and to find out why did we even get to the point where there was text all over flags? Like, why was that once considered good? And I think that's an interesting story there, and a much better story than the story I told. I was seeking just to be like, here is a way to design really good flags. But this other video that the hive mind of the internet have created is so much better, and someone needs to make it. Please make it. Please link me.
Sure.
Yeah?
I would be interested in seeing that. Yes, I definitely would.
Because I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know why there's text everywhere. I don't know why you go back ages and all of heraldry, to my eyes, looks like an absolute unmitigated mess. Sorry, people from r/heraldry, but like, it's so complex and it's so ornate, and like that jives with my sense of, well, hang on, this is meant to be a communication device, and there's a whole bunch of cultural stuff there that I think someone should talk about, and someone should also talk about like reviving some of that stuff to put it into our current flags, because I'd imagine there's a small case to be made that the way we design flags now may not be the best way going forward. Like, maybe in 200-300 years time, someone will look back and be like, all of those like postmodern flags, they kind of suck now, you know.
We have postmodern flags?
I suppose I use the term postmodern as in like I feel like we're reflecting upon what a flag is at the moment. Like, we're not just kind of, because flags aren't integral to like life or whatever, we're kind of reflecting upon what it is to be a flag and how to design a flag and what a flag does. And it seems more self-referential than back in the day. I get the impression that someone would just knock out flags as if they were a plumber or whatever, you know? So I think that's a much more interesting video. Someone please make it.
I'd love to see that. I'm going to have a stab at a possible answer for why heraldry of the kind that you're talking about can be so difficult to parse and so ornate, even though it's meant to be a communication tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be easily understood, because it's, if you're saying about the coat of arms of someone with a huge aristocratic lineage, then it's deliberately obfuscated so that understanding it is a sign of status. That's why a lot of things like manners and etiquette are kind of weird, because if it was easy to understand them, then anyone could do it. But they're weird and arbitrary and difficult, so that you have to be raised in it. so that no one can access it.
Interesting. That's really interesting. And then that subverts the idea of modern flag design, where it's like it's all about simplicity and it's all about communication. And like I suppose taken out of context, those rules may seem really obvious and kind of almost like universal truths. Like, of course, it has to be simple to understand. And again, in the spirit of someone making this other video, that might be a really interesting thing to point out. That it's not necessarily all about communication, and that's really, it's really interesting.
Or it's communication aimed at a very specific audience who have been raised and groomed into this being an important mode of communication.
Exactly, yeah. So anyhow, I think there's a better video out there. Dare I say something negative about my own content, but and I want this to. I really do want this to be made. Like I don't really care. Like I don't think I can make it now because I just made a flat video. But I want this to exist in the world. So someone please, and it will stop.
Maybe come back in a while if no one else makes it. You could return to the topic if no one else makes it.
I could, but someone should. I think someone should. And I think they could do quite well. I'd imagine a lot of the flag nerds on the internet will get very interested in that sort of thing. At least I would be interested in watching it. So,
no, I definitely would be.
Yeah, definitely. Anyhow, so that was my flag video. Never have I uploaded a video I felt more confident about, remained more confident about after uploading. But then also at the same time was like, I missed the boat. I missed the trick here. The trick would have been a historical takedown of this subject, not just a good flag, bad flag versus commission report. Yeah, and I suppose one final thing is we got an email from a trig who left a document or left the abstract to a document that is kind of along these lines. And it's worth reading that abstract to see where I'm kind of getting at. It's worth hearing it from someone who can like concisely and clearly convey their thoughts as opposed to everyone's favorite Artifexian. So links in the show notes for that. Yeah. Cool. All right. Some bit of world building.
Yeah, sure. So I did some world building this month. I returned to Janspar. So instead of Namo and Handwavia, I've done some work in my other main setting.
Have we talked about Janspar before?
Yes, Janspar. There's a couple of articles on my Janspar blog. The one about disease, that was from Janspar.
Okay.
The language, the little bit of commenting I did was a Janspar setting document.
Cool. So do you want a TLDR? Oh, but as always, Bill's document is in the show notes, link to his blog, all that sort of jazz. Do you want a TLDR for the people who aren't going to read?
Sure. So this is an extract from a historical work, and it's just giving a quick summary of an important event and the context around an important event in the global history of Janspar. It's about a ruler called Amuhlin.
Oh, wait, can I pronounce it? Amuhlin?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, Edgar nails one of Bill's names. Yeah, go Edgar.
And the a really important event known as the Sins of Amuhlin, and what happened as a result of that. Now, this actually ended up being a lot longer than I originally thought it would be. So the results, which is the really, really interesting bit, I haven't gotten to. I might have that for next week. Well, no, it's the important bit, but you know the setup here that I've written, I think, is pretty good too.
Okay, so that final bit you've written, that's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a cliffhanger.
Oh, there's more. Okay, cool. Yeah, continue.
Okay, well, actually, I'm going to ask you for your kind of summary of it, just to see how close to the mark I hit.
Okay.
How well I've communicated my intent.
My TLDR, I don't know if this is accurate, because it was a lot of information to parse in a short period of time. This is a historical document outlining the like you said, Sins of Amuhlin, and it looks like Amuhlin was once an okay sort of dude, assuming he's a guy. I don't know if he's a guy or not. and it like goes through and points out all the points at which he kind of like did not so good things, and they ratchet up, up and up and up, and we get like a civil war and all this sort of jazz. And then the big thing I was struck with is like at the end, it's like there's a civil war, but also the sun tears itself apart as a kind of result of, maybe. And that was like weird for me. So I don't know. That would be my TLDR.
Okay, yeah. So it's the story of Amuhlin, who becomes a ruler among his people and eventually becomes the sort of a genocidal leader and commits all these atrocities and things. And I'll read out the last bit here. In late spring of that year...
Oh, actually, sorry, no, before we read the last bit, I will say I think you've done a good job ratcheting up the atrocities. Like, the first time we hear of Amuhlin's bad deeds, it's kind of like something like, oh, he took a little bit of land from someone or whatever, and it's like, kind of, you feel like, oh, okay, but, you know, rulers do that, and then it goes from that to kind of genocide, and it like, does it in incremental steps, such that, like, obviously when slavery and genocide are mentioned, you're like, oh, he's clearly a bad dude, but no real step in and of itself is terrible. It's like, it's the combination of it. Like, there's a real sort of like thread.
Like, there's no sudden, I'm good and now I'm killing puppies.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
goes step by step, yeah.
And you feel like it could be realistic, like, as in, like, first a bit of a land grab, and then you have to subdue the people whose lands you've just taken, and then maybe they're unruly, so
then you're a racial supremacist.
Yeah, the genocide, nuclear holocaust, sun's tearing itself apart. No, but I think that is pretty cool. I was kind of like, I was struck with that when I read it. I was kind of like, oh that's cool. Really interesting. So, but yes, you have to read the last paragraph, because this is where maybe you've kind of lost me a little bit. They get a bit weird at this point. So, do you want to read it?
Sure. In late spring of that year, astronomers and solar cultists all over Janspar began to notice a strange distortion in the shape of the sun. Over the course of ensuing days, it was clear that a portion of the sun had separated from the heavenly body, and those tracking the motion of this morsel of solar material determined that it was approaching Janspar. ...
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, cliffhanger.
So
tune in next Artifexian, same Artifexian time, same Artifexian channel.
So what is happening? Because for the people who have read this, it reads like don't take this the wrong way, but like a relatively dry historical document. Yeah. I mean that in the best possible way, man. And then
I was thinking of such.
It goes from that to like I don't know, like weird space fantasy. And like, what is happening?
Okay, well, it's not space fantasy as such. I mean, it's all set on very much on the planet, but the existence of gods and the existence of magic is kind of an assumed part of the setting to a degree.
So, like, has your man Amuhlin annoyed the gods and they're sending hellfire raining down the planet?
That is certainly an interpretation. As with most of my Janspar stuff, I'm not going to like confirm and deny anything explicitly outside of the actual documents I provide. But I will say that that's certainly an interpretation of what these events were. I know exactly what's happening here, and it ties in a fairly big way to some other stuff that I have about the setting and the progression of the setting.
I think I know too, because I know a little bit more about Janspar than the listeners know.
Okay. I would bet the house that you're not going to guess this.
Oh well, do you want me to just guess it?
Okay, but I can't. I'm not going to promise that I will say whether you're right or not.
Okay, grand. Yeah, fine.
On air, I'll tell you privately.
Okay, grand. Because I know that your setting is a. Oh God, I don't know whether I can say this, but the setting that we played our D&D game in is one where the gods have abandoned the world.
That's something I think I've acknowledged. Yeah.
So my reading of this is that this is the thing that caused the gods to abandon the world. So I would imagine what's happening is that this guy did terrible things. The gods are like, we need to cleanse this place or whatever. So we'll tear off a part of the sun, have it impact Janspar. There's a big burning, everything's rebirthed, and then the gods don't come back. So I think this is the apocalyptic event that leads to the sequence that leads to the setting in which we play D&D.
Okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny, yeah?
I will give you an answer now, but I want you to bleep this out in the podcast.
Okay. You trust me, man. I'm not gonna mishandle your trust. I'm not gonna mishandle your trust. Go for it.
So the story here.
You're so sneaky with the swearing.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Now you know I won't put it in because of the swearing. You big sneaky git.
Well, yeah, I told you that I wanted this to be bleeped out.
Oh, okay, go for it. You're okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Right. Are we back in on air mode?
Yeah, we're back on air. I've said the spoilers.
I'll probably leave them in and just beep everything. It's gonna be great.
Well, that's what I assume.
See, this is the really annoying thing. Well, not the annoying thing, but the really hard thing to get around is that you don't tell me what's going on. Like the question that springs to mind now is this tearing off of the sun an actual tearing off of the sun? Like, has the sun literally split in two and a part of it is coming towards the planet, or is it like the solar cultists are misinterpreting like their binary star or something like that, or it has nothing to do with the thing, that sort of thing?
Okay.
Anything on that you can give me?
It certainly isn't the sun split into two equal halves or anything like that. It's like a piece of the sun is what it appears to be, like a little chunk of solar material.
Okay. Could it be a thing like a god is coming? Like that is the god, like coming down in fiery. Like it's not a piece of the sun. Like it's actually like a deity.
Could be.
Okay, and this will be explained in part 2?
There will be further context in part 2.
You're so sneaky. You, my friend, need to write a complete book. That's what you need to do.
I mean, I would love to.
Without the second part, I find it hard to... I find it hard to like that last paragraph, if I'm to be perfectly honest. Because again, it goes from like a historical sort of thing to like suns tearing it apart, and that's weird. Like there's a weird tone shift in the last paragraph. Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing is that this is all historical. These are all historical events in the context, like in an in-universe context. So like you know, even the last bit is still historical to the writer and to the intended audience.
Yeah.
Anything
else to add on that?
No, that's kind of it. I've been trying to write this for a while. As I said, it's a fairly significant thing in the setup of Janspar and in some of the stuff that I want to do with Janspar. This thing, so I really enjoy writing this setting, but I can talk about it much less on the podcast because of the restrictions that I've set myself. So I think I'll try for next episode to go back to Handwavia, but I'll also try and finish this. I'll provide the follow up to this, but I'll have something for Handwavia that we can actually talk a bit more about.
Oh, you definitely should finish this, like because we now have your man Amuhlin. He's done terrible things. It looks like there's some disaster heading the way of Janspar because of his terrible things, and I think it would be terrible not to finish that story. I think at least I will want to read it. Yeah, cool. Links in the show notes as ever, people. Yeah. So that was a remarkably quick main topic, and the reason
we spent all of our budget on on like follow up on emails today.
Well, I suppose, and the reason as well is that I have a pretty hard deadline today to finish by, and we've 3 minutes until that deadline. So actually, I think it's
Okay.
so I think it's actually a really good thing that you wrote a kind of like two-parter, like a cliffhanger thing. So it's like set up the cliffhanger, and then let's see where it goes next month. That'd be pretty cool. I have one topic for the green room. A topic that not a topic, but a thing that I've wanted to do for ages now, and I finally just was like, just say it. I would like to conduct an Artifexi-census.
Cool.
Because I'm
my mutter was at the title, not at the concept.
all right, okay. Because I am genuinely interested to see where people are listening, like what countries people are coming from. And unlike YouTube, where you watch a YouTube video and YouTube tells me what room of the house you're in, the podcasting world does not work with the same level of metrics, and we kind of sort of know hardly anything about you, Artifexia, other than like the obvious things like I would be shocked if the majority of the audience wasn't in America, and if there wasn't a big listenership in Canada and the UK and Ireland. But outside of that, all the context we have is from emails we get, which I think we had someone from Denmark once, and things like...
We've had a few Germans.
I think Dominic the Space Cartographer is German. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Dominic.
As far as I recall.
You what?
As far as I recall, yeah.
But it'd be really nice to actually have a proper, like, census, and it'd be really fun, I think, in the next show to read out and be all like, it turns out that we have 2% of our population lives in East Timor. Like, that would be awesome, and I'm really intrigued to see like how weird isn't the right word, but how far flung Artifexia goes, like how far is it reach, and that sort of thing. Like, this sort of geography sort of stuff really, really interests me. So I have, if it's okay with you, Bill, if you're okay with doing this, I have created a Google form in which you just click on the links in the show notes and you literally just type in the name of the country that you're listening in. Specifically the name of the country you are listening in, like not your nationality or where you're born, just where you are when you listen. And I would love to run a spreadsheet and compile some data, and that would be really cool.
And that's the sole question.
That is the sole question. Where are you listening? Okay. That is, I can't remember how I phrased it exactly, but let me see. What country do you live in?
Cool.
And I think that'd be really cool. What's your bets? Do you think we have people in unexpected countries, or do you think it might be the standard English-speaking world, bit of Europe, Australia? It is also an English-speaking country. Sorry, Australia. What do you think?
I expect we'll have one or two outside the normal Anglophone world. I'm going to make a call here. Yeah.
I think, now, depending on how many people fill out the form, like if, I doubt we'll get 100% coverage, and that's entirely fine. I think we may well have someone in Africa.
Yeah.
I think there is a non-zero chance that we have someone in Sudan, specifically.
All right.
Like one person. But like, yeah, as well, I'd love the thing if it was like we have, I don't know, like 50 listeners from Azerbaijan. Like, that would be cool to know, Oh!
That would be cool to know.
I literally just received a text from the captain saying she is outside, so I have to go, Bill.
No problem.
Okay, Bill, it's been a
goodbye to you, and hello to the captain.
I'll pass that on. It's been a pleasure as always, Bill. I will see you next month, and we'll do more on the cliffhanger.
Excellent.
Cool. All right. Until next time.
Edgar out.
out.